This is That One Audition with Alyshia, Ochse.
I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your journey. That has been, what a wild ride. Okay, so you had no intention of doing anything in media, but journalism was kind of the forefront?
I was a DJ and an interviewer. I was a host, but I didn't even really want to be on television anymore. I think I just wasn't sure if it was good for my brain to be so judged via the way that I look, which a woman broadcaster is in a way that a man isn't as much. I do think that we have started focusing a lot more on men's looks in a way that's probably quite detrimental to their mental health. But no, I just wanted to be a DJ and a writer. But I was out of money, and I was asked to audition for a TV hosting gig that I went up for. And then at the same time, I was asked to just go to the audition for The Good Place to see if I could even act. And that's
okay. Because did you audition? Yeah. Did you audition for Allison Jones?
I did. She's so amazing.
She's so amazing. And she's like the most sought after casting director. And for every actor that's like vying to try to have a comedy career, they're like banging down doors to like get in front of her.
She was the first casting director I think I ever met.
So I love hearing stories where people don't know what the business entails or have that first audition and don't have the pressure of what it needs to be or should be. So I'm curious, even how did that audition go, if you're willing to share?
Yeah. I also think that I've never done such a good audition ever again as the 3 that I did for The Good Place, because then I knew what was at stake, and then I actually really cared and really wanted it. And so I haven't done many auditions, maybe like 8 or 9 ever, because I'm very fussy about scripts, because I think when you do The Good Place as your first job, you're looking for that normally in a script. So if I can't find that, then the alternative has to be that there's someone in it that I really want to work with. And so that's how I make my decisions about jobs, is either I want an amazing life experience or I want to do something that is an incredible script. And so anyway, I went in.
Mike Schur, will you get Mike Schur, The Good Place? That's your first one. And as a writer.
Oh, it fucks you completely. It's like having an amazing first ever shag. Just like nightmare. Absolute
and then you
nightmare.
date for like 3-4 years, and then you're back out in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Stigmatized forever. But so I went in with Allison, and I remember the first audition being really stressful because oh God, this was so weird. So I got out of the car and I had the instructions, and I'd never been to Allison's, it was like a weird house type thing. So the first audition was really intense. I'd never been to Allison's casting office. It's a house, or it was a house back then, and it was sort of hidden behind all these trees. And I was very new to America, didn't know my way around, wasn't being able to find this house whatsoever. Saw a beautiful Indian girl walking up the road, and I was like, oh, they're looking for like a tall Indian woman for this role, so maybe she's here for that. So I went up to her and I was like, excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you. Are you here for this audition? And she said, no. I was like, do you know where this address is? And she's like, yeah. And then sent me like 10 minutes down the road, which is weird because that's where the Uber had dropped me off. And so I went down 10 minutes down the road, and I started ending up in like quite a sketchy part of Koreatown. And I was like, I don't think this is where it is. And the numbers are now really different, and realized that, okay, I think she's wrong. And she doesn't know LA at all. I turn back around, go back in the direction, find the house, walk in, and she's in there. And it was supposed to be her audition, and she's going in on my slot because I'm now late. And I was like, hey, what's this? I was like, you said you weren't here for this audition. You just sent me 10 minutes down the wrong way. And she was like, sorry. And then just practically flipped her hair and just walked in on my slot. And so thankfully I was able to audition after that. But that was like my first of many catastrophic auditions for The Good Place, right? They only just got progressively more and more stressful.
I need to hear this. I also love like Welcome to America casting, where it's like,
I know. I was like,
is there a bathroom in here? Nobody talks to you. You're like, when you used to go in the room, you're like, can I mean, only one of us are going to get it. Like, why can't we just talk to each other? It's not a big deal. Now, when you go into a male casting office, they're all talking to each other. It was always such a bizarre thing. I can't believe she sent you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and when she came out the room, she didn't even look at me, just like head held high, marched on out. And now I look back on that as like I quite like evil when I see it. I find it quite funny. And I like people. There's so many passive aggressive people in this industry that I actually like, it's like, when people say that I like my racist, like I like my cunts to just be cunts, then you can just see it. So I quite like that. I rate that now. But at the time I was absolutely stunned. I was like, oh my God, this is what people say that Hollywood is like. And I thought that they were exaggerating. And I was like, that's such a Hollywood beginning.
That was such a beginning. Well, okay. So when you go in for Allison and you're essentially reading for the first time.
It was less than 2 minutes. It was maybe 90 seconds I was in that room. It's just like, it's the first hall. They're just looking for the basic yes or no. And I walked in and we had like a bit of funny banter because I had this giant handbag that is a bag that is a ginormous hand. And so we were just bantering about my bag, bantering about England. And then she was like, read the lines. I don't even remember how it went. I just sort of blacked out. I have a good memory because I've been a TV host. And so I was like, I have no idea if this is good. I'm not embodying the character at all, but I've got the right kind of beats because I'm English and I've grown up around people like this character, so I just do my best impression of what I think they want. And then she's like, no reaction, no yes or no. She's just very friendly and kind, and she's like, okay, well, thank you so much for coming in. And I called my agent afterwards and I was like, it was fine. It was really nice. She was so nice. I was like, I don't think I got it. I don't think I was very good. And so I left, and then I got a call back from my manager who was like, I don't think you're going to believe this, but you've been called back for The Good Place. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, I was absolutely stunned because she gave nothing away. They can't give anything away because it's not their decision to make. So,
and was she putting you on tape, or was that first one just like a
No, the first one was on tape. They were all on tape because she's sending it to Mike. And so for the second audition, Mike is there. Mike is there, the producers are there, and Drew Goddard's there, and it is a much smaller pool of actresses now. And
now I have to ask if Cunty is also in the room.
She is not in the room, and that is karma. So now I still find it surreal, and I'm still certain that I'm not going to get it. So I'm still just like, this is going to be a funny story for everyone back in England. But I do feel I just had a fight with my boyfriend just before, like 15 minutes before we were like, I think we should break up. So I was like totally in bits. So the second audition comes around and I'm still not super stressed because I don't think I'm going to get it. I think it's just going to be a funny story for my friends in England. I've had multiple malfunctions that day, including washing my hair, drying it, thinking I have to look nicer this time. So wanting to curl my hair. Have never curled my hair before because, and this is very unrelatable, I'd always had my hair curled for me because I'd been on television for 10 years. And before that, I just worked in a video store and didn't know anything about hair and I didn't even own a hairdryer. So I was like, I could do this. It's not that difficult. I can, curl my hair. And I wanted to look a bit fancy, but I was still wearing the same exact outfit that I'd worn to the last audition because I was like, clearly this works. Clearly they like this. So I go into my roommate at the time, who is this like gorgeous Serbian supermodel. I go into her room and I try to find a hair curler, and I find a box that says like hair curling iron, and it's like everything's bright pink. And I open it and I see something in it that's bright pink, but doesn't look exactly the same as the hair tongue on the cover. But I was like, oh, maybe it's wireless. And it's sort of a similar-ish shape, but without the black handle. So I literally curl my hair around it. And then I turn the button on and it starts going like, and then starts moving and hits me in the face, at which point I realize it is a very smooth vibrator that isn't shaped like a dick. But it's a massive, very smooth, bright pink vibrator that I've now tried to curl my freshly washed hair with. And my boyfriend and I have been fighting that day, and we're like thinking about breaking up. And I've had to have the hair washed to just try and like wash my face and just depuff before this audition. So now I'm trying to curl my hair with a dick that's got like someone else's juice on it. And so now I have to wash my hair again At which point I'm now running like crazy late for this audition. And my boyfriend and I are still like arguing the whole time and like unable to really see the funny side of it in that moment. It's just really fucking stressful. And like 15 minutes before I leave the house, we're like, should we just break up? And it's like, okay, let's just not have this conversation now. And he still drops me to the audition, even though we want to break up with each other. He's still a legend who still drives me there and then dares to say good luck before I go in. And I'm literally like barely holding it together and so fucking stressed. And so then I get in and I've got like, you know, nervous poo syndrome. You know, it's where it's almost the only time I ever poo is if I'm nervous. And so I was like, okay, I know I'm going in next, but I'm going to shit my pants if I don't go to the toilet now. Now, Alison Jones does this in a house that only has one bedroom, right? That's where the casting's happening. Alison Jones does this in a house that only has one bathroom, right? So there's only one place I can go for a poo, and then everyone else is going to have to use that after me, and they're going to know what I did. But I'm like, fuck it. So I go in, I go towards the bathroom. I get stopped being asked if they can mic me up. And I was like, let me just go to the bathroom and then you can mic me up for the next round of audition. So I was like, that's fine. Go to the bathroom, do a poo, and then go to flush the toilet. And the fucking flush comes off in my hand without having flushed the poo. Her handle just comes off in my hand.
Oh my God.
And now I'm just looking at this handle and then I'm looking down at the poo. And I cannot believe what's happening because there's a turd that there's nothing I can do about. The room's starting to smell. And I'm like, and I've broken the toilet. And I've never been in this scenario before. And I'm not very handy. You know, I'm not a handy gal. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to climb out the window and leave. That's what I'm going to do. So I open the window. I leave the like flush like behind a plant. I hide it behind a plant, open the window, stick one leg out of this window and then realize that it's on level. Like the fucking houses in California, like the entrance looks level and then there's a huge fucking dip on the other side. So I was like, okay, I'm in like very high heels. I'm going to break my leg if I try and make this jump. And then they will find me and the poo and the flush, which will be exponentially worse. So I was like, okay, I've got to, and then I like knocking on the door because they've got loads of people to go through still. And they're like, Jameela, we really need to mic you up. And I was like, I'm just coming. I'm just doing a bit of exercise. And I start making like panting sounds as if I'm doing like star jumps or something in the bathroom. And then I realized that I could use my teeth maybe as a wrench because what the flush had was like this little like what we call an Allen key in England. It was sort of one of those square screws. So I used my tooth and I still have a little bit of the chip at the back, used my tooth and then just like pulled with my like sort of like neck and shoulders to the side and then unbelievably the poo flushed. But I've now been in there for so long and I'm covered in sweat. I'm like clammy. Oh my God. So it's very obvious. It looks like I've done a much bigger shit than I'd done.
Yes. So
I come out and there's like a smell that follows me out and they have to mic up my sweaty, clammy back and body. And the guy is just, we're not talking about it. And I don't know why everyone's just so embarrassed about poo. I'm so embarrassed about poo. But it just like in the moment, it just feels so awkward. And everyone's there and everyone can see how long I've been. So I now just don't give a shit about the audition anymore. And my relationship's ending. I've had a fucking horrible day. This is a disaster. I've broken Alison Jones's toilet. I'm going to become a laughing stock in the industry. So I'm just like, oh my God, just like fucking get this shit over and done with. I go in the room. I am really excited to meet Mike Schur, but still just like so embarrassed and stressed. And I feel like they also know about the poo because they've been waiting for me for ages. And so I sit down, have a tiny bit of banter, do the audition as fast as I can. He gives me a few notes. He makes me do it again. I do it again, I think. And then I don't remember any of this because like I'm blacked out basically in the room. And that I come back to sort of in my body as I'm saying, yeah, no, I once had this really posh boyfriend who used to go, hoorah, when he would come. And that's the sentence I came back into my body with. And now I'm just looking at quite a shocked Mike Schur and Alison Jones and Drew Goddard and Morgan and like, I think Dave, who's like Mike's agent and co-producer. And no one really knows what to do with me in that room. And I was like, okay, well, never mind. Nice to meet you. Sorry for wasting everyone's time. have a lovely day. And then I run out of the room. I do not walk out of the room.
Sorry for wasting
no,
your
literally.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And so I walk out the room, call my agent. I was like, I definitely fucked that up. I really rushed it. I don't even remember what happened in the room. I don't think I performed at all. I think I just said the words. And also I broke Alison Jones's toilet and I've hidden the flush. So I was like, I can never go back there. I can never speak to these people again. I'm so sorry. Let's just like never talk about acting ever again. So then a few days later, I get another call from my agents and they're like, Jameela, this is unbelievable, but you've made it through to the final round of auditions and it's called a network test. And I'm not saying that for you. You obviously know what a network test is, in case anyone's not heard this before, which is where there is a camera that has that, and all the network executives are like in the room. Mike is really cool and didn't have lots of people in there he made them sort of watch it remotely so that I didn't have to do it in front of basically a theatre, which most people do for a network. So instead what he had was a camera that was like such a fucking tight close-up of my face and the screen was absolutely ginormous. So it was so intense where they were really watching for every flicker of my face for a performance because there was so much improv involved. And so
at this point, are you comfortable with improv? I mean, you've been on television.
No. I'd never done any improv. I'd never done any like proper comedy. I hadn't been on TV even for years. You know, I'd been doing mostly radio and DJing. And so I just was so out of my body. And now I was finding this absolutely hysterical that I was there and was just like, this is where it will end. I just think it's so funny that I've made it this far. Even after the poo and the dildo, I was like, it is a miracle. I'm so lucky to have met Mike twice. Like, this is going to be a story I will tell people for the rest of my life. And so I am waiting in the waiting room. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 other women up for the role, different ethnicities. They all look so good. Like, and there's like, we're all being very nice to each other because this is all so obscene. Yeah. And we're excited. No bitchiness anymore. It's like the 3 or 4 nicest people are left. And I think also that's a Mike thing where he can spot a bastard and won't let someone horrible near one of his projects. So I have fond memories of those women, but we're all kept in separate rooms and you're given the contract before you do that network test, which is fucking insane. You're like,
sign here and your next 5 years will be worth millions.
7.
7.
It was a 7-year contract. So trying to understand what my contract means, and it's got all this kind of jargon that I don't really get, but my manager's assured me that she's looked at it and it's okay. And so I'm about to sign it, and Mike like knocks on the door and he comes into the room that I'm in. And he's like, hi. And he's so nice. Like, he's such a kind, sweet, lovely man. And he's really wants to like reassure me and make me feel really comfortable and just like sort of, I guess, like get my sort of funny going. And so he sits down with me and he has a banter. And then he's like, I know this is a bit weird, but I have this like weird tradition where I like to watch people sign their contract.
Oh. Okay.
And at the time, and at the time I was like, oh, that's so strange. I think he thinks that I'm not going to sign it. I think he doesn't trust me. You know, I'm English and we're just inherently bad people. So that's what I presumed. And later I found out he didn't go into anyone else's room to watch them sign the contract. He has a strong idea, unless you really fuck it up, of who's going to sign the deal. So he can be there for that moment where he finds an unknown and makes it happen, you know, or maybe not even an unknown, but he finds the person for his writing to bring that to life. And so it's such a sweet, your life. Sentimental. He knows he's going to change my life, and I have no idea that he's going to change my life. I've got goosebumps right now just thinking of that moment again, and how lucky I was that such a wonderful man was my first experience of this industry, especially given that I'd come into this industry as the Me Too movement was erupting, and as we were learning about the horrors of Harvey Weinstein and everyone else. So to have the polar opposite of that in the room with me was so amazing. I'm sure there have been horrible times where a producer has come into a room with a woman when she's waiting for an audition, and it's not that. And so he's like, listen, just don't worry about what's going in there. Just have as much fun as you can. He was like, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to read these lines with you. You're just going to have as much fun as possible. So I go in.
Reading with you?
Fucking terrifying, right? So it's Mike and Morgan and David and I think Drew Goddard again. Drew Goddard is one of the great writers of this industry as well and directors. He did like Cloverfield and all sorts of amazing things in The Martian. And he's now doing The Matrix, which is so sick. It makes me feel really jealous. Anyway, so Mike's there and he's just like, everyone's being so welcoming and chill and trying to like keep me as calm as possible because they can see I'm just a total fish out of water. And so I go in, I sit in my little seat and it's like the blue sort of green screen type, you know, even though it's blue behind me, I think. And Mike comes and sits right next to the camera, like his face is like practically touching the camera and he's reading the lines with me. And I am just on autopilot. I'm just like, just say it, just get the fucking lines right. And I'm trying to put as much funny into it as I can just to try and make him laugh because he's told me to have fun. And then I do the audition and like I get all my lines right and everyone's laughing. So I'm like, that's good. And he says, how do you feel about improv? Now, early on in this stage, I told either Mike or Alison that I had some experience acting and that I'd done theatre, which is a lie. I had once been in a
Which
school.
was your first improv.
I'd say I've done some stuff on the stage in London. Now, my school that I went to between the age of 4 and 11 did have a stage and it was in London. So I wasn't technically lying. I had done some work in the stage in London, but I'd been playing like tree number 3 in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So Mike maybe thinks I have some experience, but he's like, you know how to improv, right? And I was like, a bit like Fanny Bryce. I was like, do I know how to improv? I was like, yeah, love improv. Yeah. Me, always improving. Never improved a day in my fucking life. But I was like, I can't tell him that. And I just can't, I just have to see where this goes. And he was like, all right, we're doing an interview. We're going to do a fake sort of mockumentary type interview. And I want you to just improv your answers as the character. And I can't remember exactly what the full prompt was, but for some reason I made the insane decision and may this tape never, ever emerge because it will make people even more confused about how I got this part. But I pretended that Tahani had been invaded by the ghost of Princess Diana. And I answered all the questions basically as Princess Diana in Tahani. At the time, her name was Tessa in the script, in Tahani's body, as if I was haunted by a poltergeist. And it was the strangest decision I could have. It was so left. And I could see that he didn't even know what was happening. But he was enjoying the fact that I had the balls to go there. And I made it work and I managed to make him laugh. And then everyone sort of did a little clap and gave me a hug at the end. And then they were like, bye, you know, like, have a good day. And then you walk out of there and you're like, I have no idea. I have no idea if I have that or not. I have no idea what's going on with the other girls. Like I tell them that, you know, I leave. I see one of the other girls is going in after me straight afterwards. And I was like, don't worry, they're really nice in there. And then I leave. And then I don't hear anything back for a week. I was like, well, it was a nice memory. Like, you know, I didn't really entertain the idea that this could happen for me. And then, and then I get this call at like 9 p.m. at night from my agents and everyone's on the phone. And they never call me, but everyone's on the phone. And there's like maybe 10 people on this call. And they're like, hi. And it's clearly like a conference room. And it's also crazy that they're at work so late. But clearly they've been negotiating the deal or something. Or they'd only just heard back from Mike. I don't know. But they were like, are you sitting down? And I was like, no, I'm getting chills just thinking about this. But because of how much this changed my life. But I was walking outside. I was on Sweetser, which is just off Fountain. I was outside my house and I couldn't wait to get in my house. So I just lay down on the ground, like on the pavement, on the sidewalk. Yeah. Like outside my house and no one was around. So I didn't feel crazy. And also it's LA and everyone's lying down on the pavement here. Like it's just for whatever reason. And so I was like, this is fine. So I lie down on the floor and then they tell me, you've just been cast in the funniest and most interesting network series since The Office. Congratulations. Seriously? and I started screaming. And so now there's just a grown woman lying on the ground screaming bloody murder. And I was like, I said every swear word on the planet. And I was like, no fucking way. I was sure that they were fucking with me. But I also knew that 10 of them wouldn't prank me at 9 p.m. at night. And so that was one of the single great phone calls of my entire life. I don't know if any other phone, I've had some really good phone calls, really cool phone calls in my life. And that's the best one.
This might be one of my most favorite audition stories that I've heard in 15, 16 years.
Well, I haven't really talked about it since then. And so it was patchy for me. And it's actually been really nice for me to revisit that and relive that, because it just means so much to me. That show means so much to me. And I was treated so kindly by Mike throughout. And he really he didn't want me to go. I offered to go to an acting coach and he didn't let me. And he really just found the funny in me and taught me how to bring it out. And also I wanted to play Tahani very differently to how he'd written it. And I wanted her to be more passive aggressive and more annoying and infuriating. And he always let me do my version and his version. And then I only found out when the show came out, I never saw it before, that he chose my version.
Well, I mean, that's the gold, right? Of finding a person that would be willing to say the things that you said in probably the first, audition, definitely the second audition. But that show was, it didn't change your life. It changed so many people's lives. To see a show like that come on air, there was nothing like it. And then everybody's to try to get there. But because he brought in such people that were so comfortable being in their authentic selves, comedy is that, right? We connect to comedy when it is that. I don't know who else could have done that role. Certainly not Cunty Cunts that walked you the other way. I don't know how you beat that. So I have to ask, did you do 5 years? Was it 5 years that you guys went?
4. I did 4. Yeah.
So 4 years on that. Are you able to go and audition for other things? Or at this point, are they bringing you things? Because, when you get to
it's a combination. No, it's a combination. There was a good few years after I started in The Good Place where I shot up very quickly in America. I was very lucky that I was embraced very quickly in this country by by people who watch the show and also the media, which then slightly spiraled out of control. But there was a while where I was not doing many auditions because I was on a visa that meant I could only work for NBC. So they had exclusivity on me. And so by the time I came out of the show, I had become very well known and was on the cover of Vogue and in the Time magazine 25 influential list and stuff. So then without telling me, my team made the executive decision to make my career more sort of offer only, which I didn't know about, and definitely wasn't in a place talent-wise yet to be offer only, because people have only ever seen me play one role. Now, this is not me criticizing them. That's just how it goes, which is when someone becomes a certain level and they bring a certain, I have 3 million followers on Instagram. So they were just and they wanted me to go up for leads. And I didn't feel like I was a lead. I've always wanted to just be part of the fun. I've never wanted to be the star of anything, because I think I enjoy being the comic relief. The people I've always loved are Catherine Hahn and Alison Janney, all these people who are amazing supporting actors. Those are the roles that I've always loved the most. Jon Favreau in so many films that he did. I just think those are the people that I think about after the film. And so those are the ones that I like to be. And I think it's just there's less responsibility and more fun in that position.
So we had at this point, were you then turning down those things, or did you do a couple and then realize? No,
I just didn't. I refused to audition for any lead role things.
I love this.
I just refused. I've always refused. I have never gone up, I don't think, ever for a lead role, including Marvel. They wanted me to audition for She-Hulk and I said no. And then they came back around and were interested in me for the villain. And then I was interested in doing
I was wondering how that came.
I actually just don't. I think it's such an extraordinary gift you have to be to carry a show on your shoulders. And I'm very, very aware that I still have to earn my stripes as an actor. And I really take it seriously. And I really you know, my not wanting to be an actor isn't because I thought acting wasn't important. It's because I thought acting was so important that I didn't feel worthy of being a part of it. I have grown up a very like not very well and a very, sorry, I'll say that again without saying the word like a million times. I grew up not very well and very lonely, and it was Hollywood films and TV shows that probably kept me alive and made me feel sane and taught me a lot about the world. And so I care so much about the art and the craft. And I don't think that anyone's saving lives, but I just do think that you can change someone's life in ways that you don't realize. And so you should take that really seriously.
And the responsibility of the number one, a lot of people, you know, they show up in this industry from whatever coast or wherever, thinking that that's what they want, having no idea what responsibility that is, how many millions of dollars are riding on you, the pressure that comes around with that.
And also watching Kristen Bell and how she...
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created The Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
And also watching Kristen Bell and how she moved so seamlessly through that because she was so well versed in it. She just like had such finesse. She's such an extraordinary person to learn from. And it was an extraordinary performer. I think very underrated still, and magical to watch up close. So I really just respect her so much and really watched her carefully as to what it took, because the rest of us had I learned from how organized she was. I learned just her risk-taking ability and how natural and fluid she is on camera, and her comedic timing is so sharp. I was so intimidated by her that I kept on trying to do all my lines to her to someone else. I would look at another character when I'm supposed to say something to Kristen because I couldn't look her in the eye because I was just too intimidated, because she's so good, and I just thought she was so great. But you know, before that, I'd like loved her in Forgetting Sarah Marshall and stuff.
Yes.
And even Burlesque. I thought she was wonderful in Burlesque. I love that film. Unexpected favourite of mine. Will watch anything with Cher and Kristen Bell in it. But yeah, so I think that it was a real education being on that show and watching Ted Danson try something different every single take, and just the fluidity and confidence of his performance and his willingness to try something silly that won't work, to just try it out in case there's magic in there. And then the improbability of Manny Jacinto and the complexity and hilarity of the whole cast, to be perfectly honest, like Will, Darcy, everyone's so talented. Mark Evan Jackson, Lisa Kudrow, Maya Rudolph, the cast I got to learn from, and I really paid attention, changed my life. There's no show I could have done where I think I would have learned more.
Well, you went to comedy school and got paid to do it, it's a remarkable thing to have at the beginning of your career and then trying to match it, right? I always say, like, you know, there's peaks and valleys to this career, and you have to like string those peaks together. But those valley moments usually come after something that is so monumental, and you might not get that again in a career. Sometimes people just get that one time, and you know how lucky you are. I would love to ask you, I think, some more mental health questions, because I think this industry, and we can tie it into audition stories, because like you just said, you kind of walked into like the golden college of comedy, right? And through a comedy of errors and great auditions, but it is you.
Really psychotic auditions.
Great audition story. It doesn't get any better. It really doesn't get any, especially thank God it's a comedy, right? Like it's great. I think I'll be talking about this. People always ask, what's your favorite? And I'm like choosing children whenever I do these interviews, but this might take the cake for a long time. But you are so vocal about, and you have been given a beautiful platform and you've used it in the best way. I love your podcast, I Weigh. I love you're out in the world talking about how we can be better ourselves in our mental states, in our physical bodies.
Mm-hmm.
This industry is mostly, if people look at it like rejection. I like to change people's minds and say it's selection, not rejection, because if not, we can get so in the weeds about it. How do you mitigate going from a show like that, having a team that's now dependent on you and they see you as a dollar sign, right? Then trying to go out and quote unquote get another job and not have the industry kind of change your mind. You've been so anchored in that in such a beautiful way. Yeah, that's a kind of strong, wild question to ask, but I'm just curious how your brain thinks about things, even down to even saying no to them, being like, no, I'm not going to go out for the lead for that. I'm not going to do that.
I think it's because I started at 31. You know, like I don't think that it must be very easy to. There was plenty of things that in my British career I didn't say no to when I should have, and I didn't have the right team around me, and I had some people on my team who really were detrimental to success that I had built, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself. So I really think it was the lesson of how badly I fucked it up on my first turn, and then the gift of being given a second chance that taught me that I was going to do this very differently this time. And if people didn't want to work with me for who I really was, then I'd rather be rejected for who I am rather than accepted for who I'm not. And that was very important to me. And I know my value, but I also know my limits. And I'm just very straightforward about that. And I'm very lucky that I have a team of, you know, I've fired people and chiseled my team down to the point where it's just these amazing women who don't look at me as a dollar sign, who understand that I'm not going to be the actor who takes every role, who understand that I'm not very well. So I also can't take roles all the time because I need to rest. And so I'm not going to go from job to job to job to job. And they know that I'm very particular and that I don't want to play relatable characters. I want to play maniacs. I am a character comedy actor, I realized. And it's really important to know that before you get typecast. Figure out. And so I think I was very thoughtful about that I want to play. I love weirdos. I am a massive weirdo. And those are the people, that's the representation I want to bring. And so, yeah.
To audition now, or are you auditioning now?
Yeah, I audition sometimes. I don't audition, like I said, I don't audition very often. I just auditioned for something recently that I really wanted, but I think they ended up going with someone a bit older and probably more talented. And so now they're looking at me for maybe another role, but it's something that I really, really want. And I think because I really, really wanted it, I don't think it was my best performance.
I was just going to ask.
It's always the things that I don't care about that I do really well at. And I'm just trying to figure out my brain.
Right?
Yeah.
It's one of those you're like, there's no way I'm going to get this. And then that's the thing you get because there's a carefreeness to it. Because I was curious if you would, I always ask everybody this, if you have some tangible things that you do now for auditions, because auditions and being on set, totally different skill set. So you got to be on The Good Place for 4 years. You've worked on various other sets. You've gotten that muscle, right? You know what to do when you're on set. But the audition is such a different muscle that I was curious for the one, if you want to use the one that you really liked, how are you preparing for that now? Like, how are you preparing for the auditions now?
So I'm very, very shy and none of my friends are actors. And all my friends work in different fields. And so I don't ever like to audition with anyone. So a lot of my tapes are with my business partner who does no acting whatsoever. And she just reads the lines and I perform at her and she's not in the room and it's on my phone and it's over a screen. I rarely, because of the pandemic, when I started auditioning, it was all on Zoom, which is horrifying because then you can see your own face and you want to die. Yeah. But I got given, I remember just before the She-Hulk audition, I recorded this episode of my podcast with Dr. Deepika Chopra. And she is a doctor of optimism who, you know, began my exploration of neuroscience. And she and I were talking about how we don't think manifestation is actually a very healthy or realistic practice because it kind of creates this feeling of blame when shit starts going wrong. and it can be quite toxic if, abused, which we've seen it done, in a lot in the industry and online. But she says that there is actual science behind imagining yourself in this scenario, imagining where you're going to sit, what you're going to be wearing, and imagining it going really well, and try and find out as much as you can about who you'll be reading with, and or see a picture of the casting director, so that when you walk in, your brain isn't seeing all these things for the first time. Your brain's going, oh, I know what this is and I feel safe, so that you can actually be present in the room.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, well, I know I'm doing it on Zoom, so I'm going to go and sit where I'm going to be on my computer, and I'm going to be wearing the clothes that I was wearing. And I know what Sarah Finn looks like. And I know what the director, Kat Coiro, looks like, because I've met her before. And I don't know what the assistants look like, but I can kind of imagine-ish their age. And I'm going to do the lines and imagine it going really well. So then my nerves were just not as present than when I did the audition. I wasn't as shocked as I normally am. And I think it was the fourth audition I'd ever done. And the last three before that had been harrowing. And this one felt really easy because my brain was like, it's my old friends. I didn't know these people. But my brain was like, okay, great. I know what this is. It's like the first time we sleep somewhere new. We don't get a proper night's sleep because a part of our brain is still awake because it's going, where are the threats?
Yes.
So it's similarly, my brain didn't have to go, oh, where's the trauma? Where are the threats? Where's the problem? It just felt completely stable. And so it was actually practical scientific advice that I now use for auditions, and it massively helps.
That's a beautiful tool. And I even just like turning the manifestation on its head. I've never really heard about that when it doesn't go your way. Thank you for sharing that. First, I know that you could possibly relate to this, but somebody who I deal with chronic illness, and then doing that with auditions and certain things. And I've tried to will it away, I'll manifest this away, and then trying to figure out, and then the blame does come in, right? On days when I can't perform at my highest or do whatever is happening. But to be able to sit and be in a zone where I've kind of not manifested, but played out the scenario, it's a way more comforting space for my body, that where it needs to be. So it's not in shock. It's not in fight or flight. And it's not even what you said at the beginning, which I love and is so relatable, is when you come out of the audition and you're like, what just happened? Because fight or flight, right? We've left our bodies. We're not paying attention anymore.
I disassociate,
Completely disassociate. And I think a lot of actors do that, right? There's so much pressure on this job, or there's so much pressure to get this job so I can do X, Y, and Z, that we, of course, are going to run from that pressure versus just being here, talking, hitting some jokes, saying some words, right? It's such a silly, funny thing, the audition process itself.
It's also so important to remember that might be the only time you ever get to play that role, is in that audition room. So enjoy it as much as possible. Because I might, and so I really felt that when I was doing the Titania audition, where I was like, these lines are so funny and I love them so much. And I'm probably never, obviously at 36, I'm not going to be hired by Marvel. So I was like, I'm just going to enjoy this and cherish this. And I do want it, but I'm also okay with not getting it. I was also lied to and told it was a cameo, which is horseshit, but that's classic Marvel being naughty. But I did want it still. And I just thought, I'll just enjoy this in case this is the only time you get to do this. Just play. And I strongly recommend that for anyone. It's play and cherish the experience. That this is don't think of it as, will I be rejected or not? Just have as much fun as you can and enjoy being the role that one time, and hope that maybe you get to do it again.
Hope, right? Absolutely.
It's high hopes, low expectations.
I love that. High hopes, low expectation.
Yeah.
I love that. As somebody who started their career, or just as a person, writing, and then getting to be on some of the best shows with some of the best writers, I have to ask, and then I know you've written for Cosmopolitan, Huffington Post too, right? Some other different places and spaces.
Yeah.
Have you dabbled in writing a script yet?
Yeah, I have a script. I got signed to 3 Arts based on a show that I wrote, that I created, and then I just sort of didn't have time, and then felt so embarrassed after reading Mike Scher's writing and Megan Amram's writing to even dare. But then I met this brilliant young writer called Harry Trevaldwin. I saw his videos online and I was like, God, he's got the perfect sense of humor to bring this show to life. And so I DM'd him and asked him if he would be interested in talking to me on the phone. And he said yes. And then we got on the phone and we spoke for like 3 hours, and then decided to watch a movie together to see if we enjoy the same comedy beats. Never met. He's in England, I'm in Atlanta, and I'm filming She-Hulk at the time or something. I don't remember what I was filming there, but we talk and we have such extraordinary chemistry. And so he goes away, takes what I've done and puts his spin on it. And then we work on the dialogue together. And immediately it comes back, and, you know, no first draft that we could do together would ever be perfect, but it's so funny and it's so strong. And so again, I've been avoiding him because I find this whole thing so terrifying, because when you then have a big platform, suddenly, I don't know, it's harder to be seen from a fresh perspective. People just feel like they know you so well, so they're much more judgmental of the work. And so I feel so scared that I would let him down in some way. But I am going to finish it with him and pitch it out properly, because everyone's very excited about the idea of this show. And so I'm going to try, but I think it would only be this show that I would try to probably create, because it's an idea I've just never been able to get away from for years, even before I became an actor. And so, but I don't have any great designs to be a director or a producer or a big famous writer. I think that my place is to take someone else's work and bring it to life. And I think it's something I, again, respect so much. And I'm just very clear about what is good for me.
Well, I love that you're so clear about that. But that was the thing when I was researching you. I was like, she's got to be writing something. You have such a distinct voice and such a talent for words that I just can't wait to read that. So
I'm writing a book. It's not about myself. It's a book about science at the moment. And so that'll come out next year. But
fabulous.
That seems to be where right now my brain is. And in the meantime, I'm going to try, and after that, I'm going to finish this script and see if anyone wants to make it. But I would cast someone who isn't me in it.
Yes, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So final question, because I get asked this a lot. I'm sure you do. But in the realm of an acting career, because you've spoken so highly about how much you respect it. And, you know, when we were little and watched television and movies to escape where we were, we couldn't go, yes, there were the tabloid magazines, but we couldn't go to their social media, right? There was an anonymity, there was a space between us and them that allowed us to really transport. You do have such a big platform. You are so vocal, and I'm so glad that you are. How do you balance the two, or what is your advice for actors that are like, I need to build up my platform, I need to get more fucking followers so that I can work? Because we're in this weird landscape now, and I get asked this question all the time. Should I be putting out more stuff on social media so I can work more as an actor? Like, how would you answer this question?
It's hard to say, because Timothée Chalamet does not have social media.
A lot of people, yeah.
There are some people who are smashing it, who really don't engage at all with socials. So it's hard I don't think it's the cure-all advice. What I would say is that you aren't mad if you think that they are going to pick sometimes the person with the bigger follower. Like sometimes I sign on to projects that I then leave once they cast someone who is definitely not funny, but has 10 million followers on Instagram. So I pull out of projects when that happens. You can see that that's a finance decision. It's not an artistic decision. And it's happened on a project I've been considering recently where I'm not sure now again, but I think this person's actually funny, so I think it could work. And it's not me being a snob of like, oh, they haven't worked before, because they have. It's just that when you can see that the motivation is only how famous they are, then that can sometimes bastardize comedy. And so I care about that, and it is real. So I would say that ways that especially comedians do it is by creating and writing their own sketches and doing them. And that's how I met Harry Trevaldwyn. He was not known yet. He wasn't working on anything yet. I didn't know that he'd been cast on a few projects, all of whom saw him. He'd been dropped by his agent that year. And then started going viral on TikTok for just these really chill, simple, shot at home, lo-fi videos of him just trying stuff and also showing how funny and what a great actor he was. And they were just these 30-second to 1 minute videos that were just, and it's hard to ever know what goes viral, but I think you just have to make what is the most authentically you. And he has had tremendous success because of those videos. And I wonder how that agent feels now.
Right. I always love those stories where it's like right after you grab that good one.
Yeah, she dropped him just a few months before he started going viral. I think that's why, but again, I think that's probably part of what inspired him to start working harder on the internet, is the hunger of like, fuck, how am I going to find my way back in?
Well, that's the thing. When actors write in, or I consult other actors or I talk to them, it's really interesting to me that they're gunning right for the agents or managers. And it's interesting that you had a certain agent and manager once you got over here to America, but once they get a certain agent and manager, they give over their career or their ambition to these people that may or may not, they've got 30 other people, 40 other people to take care of. It's really interesting when people once then either lose that agent or manager or don't have an agent and manager, how purposeful they are, how driven they are, how open they are to put the focus on themselves and to create their own work at that time. So I always say, just like, do the work. They come later. Agents and managers, the right agents and managers come later. The right support team comes later.
Yeah, and they don't come. You have to really dig and build those relationships. And remember that those people out there, they represent you. Make sure that you have people who treat other people kindly and who are nice to work with, because I have heard of people who don't get work because people just don't want to deal with their manager or their publicist. And so I'm very intense about making sure that everyone, like, I'm a very kind and well-mannered colleague. And so even if I'm not necessarily always the most perfect performer, I'm always polite and I'm always pleasant to work with. And I'm very caring of the people around me, regardless of their position. And this isn't me just patting myself on the back. That's what everyone should be like. And I take my reputation as seriously as my performance. And I think my team has to reflect that. And I have a very strong philosophy around that, because otherwise, what are we doing? Like, who are we to treat people like shit? You know, we're just...
Exactly. Which is why you continue to work and the phone will continue to ring. Makes me happy to hear when people are good people, good reputation, doing business in a certain way, that continue to work and work and work. Would you do anything different, or what's a piece of advice you would have given your younger self in this career lane, in the acting career lane?
Oh God, just the amount of things that I didn't put myself up for in my entire 15-year career because I didn't think I was thin enough. It's just the saddest thing of my life. It's just, I'm so disappointed I'm so disappointed in diet culture and in our media and in our society that I, as a relatively bright and strong, resilient person, was able to be so brainwashed by this pervasive and abusive industry and media and society that I took myself out the running for opportunities, and for life experiences and for romantic dates or meals out and celebrations, because I was so riddled with anorexia. That's my biggest regret. And I urge you to not wait to look perfect, your warped idea of like a prescription of what is perfection. Do not wait. Do not take yourself out the running. You never know what people are looking for. I got very, very close, as in like, it was pretty much me for a ginormous movie at the end of 2022 that I auditioned for. And it was the dream role of a lifetime. Audition went really well. For a month, it was like, oh, we love her, we love her, we love her. They were calling Marvel, calling everyone to get references for how I work. They were really excited. And then suddenly they went with someone 15 years older than me and changed their idea because they felt like it wasn't an age appropriate enough relationship between me and the main star, which is extremely refreshing and something I've always wanted. It did like feel a bit like, well, I hope you're happy that you've been fighting for more appropriate aging in Hollywood now that you've lost your role to someone older than you. But I'm still really happy that it happened. But it just goes to show, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what someone's looking for. They change their mind all the fucking time. Sometimes they change the gender, they change the race, they change the whatever about that person. Just throw yourself in. And what I've tried to do in my time in America is just remember that it's not my responsibility to be chosen. I'm either right for it or I'm not. Mm-hmm. And so throw yourself in, like play the lottery and see if you win. And if you're supposed to, then you are. And if it doesn't happen, then it's because somehow you were being protected. And everything I haven't gotten has always ended up being for the best, because either I ended up getting really sick during that time, or something amazing and really fun happened that I would have missed, or a different job came up, or that job turned out to be shit and a miserable experience. So I very much so trust. I'm not a very spiritual person, but it is a very spiritual concept that the universe is protecting you. And I find that very comforting, whether it's real or not. And it has thus far been true every single time. And so I think that's been my kind of philosophy. And I don't have all the answers. I'm certainly not an authority to be able to come here and talk to people about this industry. I've only done 3 jobs ever, maybe 4. And I'm still very green because, I started in a pandemic and then we went straight into a strike. So I've not really gotten my feet off the ground yet. But I would just say, stay fresh and stop taking yourself. Don't talk yourself out of opportunities before even trying, because you are not the authority. You are not objective about yourself. You do not know your own value or potential. And Mike Schur saw something in me that I tried to talk him out of hiring me, but he could see something that I couldn't. And so after that, I stopped trying to control other people's opinion of me and whether I was worth it or not, and let them decide for themselves.
I mean, that's such a beautiful way of putting it, but I'm just going to reflect back. I'm so glad you're on mic right now saying these things. I'm so glad that the camera gets to see you and your authentic self and your beauty and your humor and your being. I'm so glad that you've taken your experience in life and put it on mic, and that you continue to bring people to the table and have the tough conversations. I'm so fucking glad that the social media does exist and you have something in your hand that you can actually change the way people think when they're doom scrolling or they're thinking about the perfection idea. Mm-hmm. I'm so incredibly grateful for you to be so grounded in who you are and exploratory in who you are and curious, because really you are changing how people think about themselves day in and day out. So thank you.
Thank you. And look, if I could just give one last piece of advice to anyone in any field, but almost especially this one, is live for the funny story. Yeah. I live for the funny story. And that way I can kind of never lose, because if I humiliate myself, it's an infinitely funnier story. And Absolutely. So it's my philosophy that has carried me through. It's like, what can I get away with and how badly can I fuck this shit up? And when I think of it like that, then it becomes a game. And if you're not, as long as you're not like a surgeon, that applies to that applies to many. Yeah. I think there are some politicians who have the same attitude, unfortunately. Right. But I do think that has kept me sane in this business, is that you can't reject me because I always win, because I have a funny story about failure.
You do. And God bless, like, what great. I mean, and let's let everybody know, if they're not already following you on social media, your social media, you're still putting out episodes on iWay? On
iWay, yes. I'm just doing iWay and I'm writing my book, and I am not doing anything else until next year. So that's the plan, is just to write and hang out with my dogs, who I miss very, very much, and who I have been away from while working for so long. And now I'm going to just go traveling for the summer. And that's it. But you can find me on my podcast, iWay. I'll be doing it all year, and on my socials, where I'm a mixed bag of entertaining and annoying. And then next year, I guess I'll be back on the promo tour with projects. So
yes. What's your social for everybody? That
Jameela Jamil. It's just my name, Jameela Jamil.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.